2, the next one 3200, the next one 4991. Can't you go back on part 8 while doing part? You can't. No, you can't. But I'm just doing this because I wanted to just complete it, and so all the information is there. You wouldn't be able to resubmit if you didn't finish part 8 in that first 3 hours. You would not be able to resubmit your work. But I was just completing it for the sake of this demonstration, right? So yeah. So what you will have in part A is this part. In part B is this part A scenario. You're going to have to fill in this checkpoint, and you have to fill in this email. So let's get started now, right? So 43 minutes into this, and we're eventually getting started, but we're doing it now. We have. Firstly, let's read the part B scenario. So you should all have, in the link below that I've put into the chat, you should all have all the documents that I did yesterday available to you in this Jan 2023 past paper folder, the completed PID and the costs. And we're going to have to do this checkpoint based on just that PID, what we've got there. So one person made an error when they were doing their exam with their mock recently, and they didn't read the set task brief. They actually wrote the entire checkpoint from things they thought could go wrong in the project. But you don't have to imagine anything, right? You just have to read this scenario. So the scenario for part B is you are used to your project management and evaluation understanding and skills within the computer scenario. You need to review the project's progress and lessons learned. It's time for you to provide a checkpoint report for the council leader, Imran Hussain. He's the main guy in this, and the relevant people from Smart One Devices. You need to write a review of the project delivery and describe any issues that have occurred. So, information. Delivery of the cabling was delayed by 4 days. So, the more of these scenarios you read, you realise that, yeah, there's going to be things like delays, staffing issues, overruns in costs or whatever. Delivery of the cabling was delayed by 4 days. The senior software engineer was ill and off during the second and third week of the project. So again, staff being sick, that's something that we discussed about in the risk, why it's really important to spend a lot of time on that risk analysis, because you can imagine things like this going wrong. So let's skip to the risk analysis. I said systems don't work, materials not delivered on time, staff being sick. Look, that's not being delivered on time. The staff is sick, and that was a risk because we only had one senior. You didn't have two, you had one. So if one of them's off, you're a bit screwed, really. And then we've got security issues arose after the network went live. This required an immediate shutdown and updating of the scripts. So again, a testing issue, right? What did I say? The systems don't work. Well, how can we prevent those systems from not working? How can we prevent this from happening? Well, we've got to predict that in our risk analysis. We've got to say that we've done ISO testing standards, we've done pair programming, all sorts of things like that. So there's a lot to talk about here. But I've predicted all of these things, so I'm definitely going to go on about that. The fact that I've imagined those things, and really, if you predict all those kind of risks in your PID in the first one, you should be okay for the second one. So the date of the checkpoint is up to you to an extent. Let's imagine this checkpoint comes at the end of the project. It's weird. It's like checkpoint. You'd imagine somewhere in the middle, but a checkpoint, I think it would it's like a retrospective on the project. I think I'm going to pick my end of my project, 20th of March. So from the 9th of Jan 2023 till 20th of March, that's for the period covered. And let's say that the date is on that. Again, simple. First stuff to fill in, really easy. Modifications, none. Author, your name, project manager's name, Ben Smith. The date, 20th of March. Let's see if I can paste that matching format. Maybe I'll zoom in on that so it's a bit bigger on your screens. Approvals. What's his name? Who's got to approve this? Imran Hussain. Imran Hussain in E. He is the council leader. Signature. I don't know why they've got a signature in there. It's not like he's a real person. You can ask him for a signature, is it? So just go none or whatever. The date is still 20th of March, and it's version 1. Easy to fill in. Who are we going to distribute it to? Surprise, surprise. Same person. 20th of March. It goes. So we're going to move that to here, and then version 1. Right. Products. So what do we write in products? Anyone got any ideas? Who's listening? You put it in the chat. You're welcome to interact with me. But what do we need to put in product? Well, this is why you need to have completed your PID, all the sections on it, because I can't look at the original Part A scenario. I can only look at the work that I've done, and I know that products are going to be the deliverables. They, the key things that they wanted delivered. Again, I didn't actually complete this table yesterday, but I had half an hour left, but I was a bit tired. It's just a demonstration. But the products, you're meant to write a description of each one of these things. Let me just double check that. Now, I wouldn't be able to look back, but I just had this thought that I think I might have made a mistake there. These are the deliverables. These are not the. I put the wrong deliverables in the PID. Silly me. These are not deliverables. These are task aims, aren't they? They're the project aims. So obviously the deliverables are things like sensors and cameras. So I'm going to update my PID. But you should, the deliverables that you should put into your deliverable table in your PID should be the things that you said you're going to deliver that are really important. Such as, delete all that. Delete that row, yes. So the deliverables are the key things that you've got to deliver for this project. That usually come at the beginning, after you've got like the project aims and the business goals. But the deliverables usually come after that here. And they're things like, the tasks are a breakdown of how you make these deliverables, right? So the deliverables are just a general overview of the things that you've got to deliver, like sensors and cameras to monitor the environment, customized council app, the installation and configuration of a new server, installation of network infrastructure, the installation of hardware and software. And then when you're breaking that down, you can say that you need to have which one of the materials you're going to need to use to comprise that of. So if you went back to the materials, this section here, which one of these things would your sensors and cameras solar powered smart cameras, sensors and cameras, perhaps smart lighting. Smart heating sensors, car charger, get rid of that one. So yeah, these, and then these deliverables, like I'll come back to complete that later because I'm just trying to focus on the part B. But your deliverables are the things that are you need to what random thing someone just said in the chat. You need to put these deliverables as products, right? So we are going to need to deliver sensors and cameras to monitor the environment. We're going to need to deliver a customized council app. Is that like a troll or something? Chicken? Who's chicken? Adult? I'm not even going to read that, but should I kick him out? Customers Council app, the installation and configuration of a new server, the installation of network infrastructure, and the installation of hardware, software in a technological hub. Right, so those are all the products. They're the things that we said we're going to deliver, and we've got to say whether or not, based on this checkpoint report, that we like those things have been delivered or they've been delayed. So delivery. So cabling is a senior software developer sick. Cabling was delayed by 4 days, and security issues when the network went live. Right. So, which one of those deliverables do you think would be affected by the? Yeah. Does anyone know chicken? Shall I just kick him out? Yeah, let's just remove him. And put user in timeout. I put him in timeout. Right. So I think you get some random people just logging into these, don't you? Because they're public. So the installation, the sensors and cameras to monitor the environment. Let's look at. See again. If I'd completed this. If I completed my deliverables table in my PID yesterday properly, I would have more information to look back on. So that just requires the app. Servers, routers, installation. So those are the materials that make up those deliverables. Because I've got that information there, I can look at the Part B scenario and I can figure out what work may have been undertaken or may have been missed because of these delays. So delivery of the cabling was delayed by 4 days. So which one would that have affected? I think delivery of the cabling by 4 days would have affected the. You've got to think on your feet a bit here. It would have affected the installation and configuration of a new server. I'm just literally going to copy these issues and just put them into work undertaken, and then I'll add some extra things in a minute. I've just got to figure out which one of those deliverables is going to be affected. The installation of hardware and software in the technological hub. Right, so yeah, I think that the senior software engineer being ill would have affected that. So it's 8 days delivery there, 4 days for cabling, and the senior software engineer was off during the 2nd and 3rd week. So you'd have to have a look at your Gantt chart and see what was going on in the 2nd and 3rd week to work out what was delayed there. Well, let's go and do that. You would have access to your Gantt chart. So the senior software engineer, senior software. So 2nd and 3rd week. So if we're going up to, look at the, if we're starting here, the 1st week's there, the 2nd week is there. So he was doing a task in the 2nd week. He was doing something up to that. So that task would have been pushed forward by 4 days. But he wasn't doing anything on that 3rd week. Senior software engineer is only doing one task on this. So his task would have been pushed forward, and then that would have meant that the junior software engineer could not have started testing until a week ahead. So that is going to push the project forward a little bit. Even though we built in that extra testing time, is that necessarily going to help us here? It will help us here with the security issues, a delay of 8 days. So for the tasks such as security rose around when the network went live, which task is that going to affect? I think the app is fine. This has probably been completed on time. There's nothing about that. Sensors and cameras to monitor the environment. I think that maybe I think that work has been completed on time. Because why? Because would the delay of cabling affect sensors and cameras to monitor the environment? Well, let's assume it didn't. It would affect installation of the network infrastructure for sure, and the configuration of a new server. But I think the security issues after the network went live will affect the I don't know. I think they'd affect the the installation and configuration of the new server because of those security issues. Delay of 8 days. Which one would that have affected? Again, we could look at like the tasks as well, the breakdown, the smart targets. Why it's important to have done the smart targets in full. And we can let's think about that. So the app is fine, I think. Installation and configuration of the server probably affected by the cabling delay, network infrastructure, cameras installing cameras. Perhaps all of these hardware tasks might have been affected. Installation and configuring technical hub software. Well, he's going to be sick. We said that he's sick during the second week. Therefore, it's going to push his forward and software testing forward by a week. But the which one security issue on the network going live. It would probably affect everything at the end, but because we built in that extra testing time for major and minor faults, it's not going to affect it. So I'd say that let's just put it here for now. So basically, what I'm doing, I'm trying to like match up the problems we've got in the project with the different deliverables, right? So the sensors and cameras to monitor the environment, that work's been completed on time. When did we say we were going to complete it? This is where you've got to go and extract the information from your PID or your Gantt chart or your Excel. Sensors and cameras, these ones here. Put the date in there. Wednesday the 1st. I don't think that would have been affected. The customized council app. Again, that was finished on the 2nd of February, and then that was not affected. The installation and configuration of a new server. So extra testing time, I don't think counts for delays in delivery, right? So it's 8 days, right? So installation and configuration of a new server. So let's go and look at our smart targets here. What date did we have? Installation and configuration of a new server. Installing infrastructure, installing the server. We said it's going to finish on Friday, the 1st of January 2023. I think that might get pushed forward by 8 days. And if we did add 8 days onto that server, so we can't start it then, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If we put it there, you can see how maybe it might affect other tasks. So I said we can't start that until the 19th because there's a delay. That means that that task is now pushed forward 10 days till February, but the senior network engineer was only working on one task, so it doesn't actually affect anything else. So that was clever, you know, the less dependent people, less dependencies. So we can use our Gantt chart to update these dates a little bit, where we think that Yeah, so an 8-day delivery of that one. Sorry, I mean, instead of finishing on 28th, they're going to finish on the the 1st of the 2nd, 2023. So in February. So we're going to finish then. The network infrastructure installation. So network infrastructure installation, an 8-day delivery there, meaning the junior network engineer can't start on that, and also until the one, 2, 3. I'm counting business days. You see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Actually, it's 18th, I think. So let's say it's the 18th. So that one's actually the 31st. Yeah, I'm going to share all the documents like in the same folder. 18th. So that might push things forward a little bit, because am I using the junior network engineer on anything else? I am actually using him on the testing task, but not. So that one's going to be 31st of the 1st. So extra days, 8 days. Actually, it's only 4 days, isn't it? I've made a mistake here. So it's the 8-day delay is on the security issues, which I think will affect come at the end, but it's absorbed by our extra testing time. So I apologise. It's at the weekend. So it's not the 18th, but instead of the 9th, it was 1, 2, 3, 4 whole days, meaning we can't start until the 13th on that one. We can't start until the 13th on that one. We'd be delayed by 4 days. So it's the 26th. And then and then we've got a clash here. Why have we got a clash here? Because we've got to wait until number 5 is finished. So let's see how, if I change that to 5. Now we've removed the clash, but it's going to push some dates forwards. We're still within time scale. We're not going over time here. So the installation of the network infrastructure is also delayed by 4 days. So that's 0302, 0302 23. The senior software engineer becoming ill. We can't do anything about him being sick. We've only got one resource of him. That means we're going to have to add on 5 days. Let's add on 5 days for him to complete the task. 15 days. So he's, instead of 10 days, it's going to take him 15 days. And then he's going to finish on the 27th. 27th, 01, 2023. Right? I would say that this. So then I'm going to add some things to this here. Senior software engineer being ill during the 3rd week. So this pushed his time to complete forward by 5 days because he was working on it. But this issue around security issues was included, 8 days was included in the testing time we built in. I think, yeah, network. Like, I think it's probably going to affect everything. We'll leave it like that for now. How would that perhaps him taking an extra 5 days is going to affect the cost of things a little bit. But the time scales we've got now, the last task finishes now, still on the 20th of the 3rd. There's no clashes, so we can copy the information that we wrote in the PID over. The whole project is going to take 56 days still. So taking 56 days, put lots of information. The project's going to cost £99,305.43. You might want to say this is the quality. What can we say about the quality? You can say that the quality was kept high. We went over the budget slightly, but that was so we built in extra testing time, right? If you build in extra testing time, then you when it comes to issues like the security issue, it's absorbed. Okay. Okay. So I've done quite the hard work here of matching up which of these scenarios that they've thrown at us is going to affect which tasks, and trying to figure out whether it will push it forward or not. You've then got to just do an issues log. So this should be fairly simple now. So I can say that I'm going to put just copy and paste each one of them in, a description of them, security issues, cabling delays. There's just 3 things, isn't there? You've got to say the date it was raised, you've got to say who raised it. So let's say project manager raised the first one. It's good. That's when it's going to be finished. The senior software engineer being ill. Well, when did he become ill? During the 2nd week. And that would be 16th of Jan. So use your project file, your Gantt chart to get this information out of there. 16th of the 1st, 23. The security issues arose after the system went live. That would be after everything's been tested, right at the end, right? So on the 20th of 03, right? So 20th, 03, 23. Let's say senior network engineer rose it. Sounds sensible, doesn't it? I think they're just looking for whether you can think sensibly, when you write these things out. There isn't a definite right or wrong answer, but it's just like, can you show a logical thread of what you're saying? And the cabling was delayed by 4 days. Let's say that was raised at the beginning of the project by maybe the project manager, because I noticed it. And then how did the security issues affect it? I said that we've got this extra hardware software testing time that we built in. So it's not going to have affected it. So I'm not going to 0323. The cabling did affect some things, say, to do with installing. That meant we couldn't start until the 13th of the 1st on some of the network things. So I'm going to put the date in on that when we've got that delayed by 5 days. What action are we taking for each of these? Well, so for the software engineer being sick, unfortunately, we only had one of him, so we only had one of him, so we had to wait for him to become better. And what thing was he actually doing? He was installing and configuring hardware, technical hub software. And that meant that the software testing would have had to wait a little bit. Wouldn't it? I guess that's going to push that forward slightly, isn't it? So the 23rd, you've got to wait for the senior software engineer to finish, haven't you? So it should shove it forward a little bit. So that software testing task needs to wait for number 8 to finish. So it can't, yeah, we're going to, actually, if I delete that, and I put that on, that's better, right, that makes more sense. So yeah, the software testing now doesn't start until the 30th of January, because we're waiting for the senior software engineer to get back from being sick. So the senior software engineer becoming ill, so he now completes his task on the 27th. So we had to wait for him to become better until the 27th of Jan. This meant that software testing could not start until, well, the 30th of January. But this did not affect end dates. As you can see, it shoved it forward a little bit, but not much, right? Senior network engineers, security issues arose around the network. A delay of 8 days was included in built on the so this would have caused a delay of 8 days, but was included in the testing time we built in, which was pretty smart of us. So I'm going to say that these network issues, major issues, after everything's been tested, the last task to be finished was the testing by the app developer on the 20th. But I think that we built in that task there, so it's not going to have delayed anything. My formatting on this table is terrible. You should try and make sure that the font are the same size and stuff. Examiners like that kind of thing, I'll make the font a bit bigger there. And cabling was delayed by 4 days. So what did we do? This meant the network infrastructure and installation of servers could not start until, well, when did we say that we're going to start them? I'm going to, these two tasks, the 13th of Jan, 4 days later. Right, we those things happen. You can't, they're not they're not technical issues, so they're not testing issues, but it just means that things, I think, can't start until a few days later. So let's just make sure that the font in all the tables is the same. Okay. So that's the issues log. You've got to just copy out all the issues that they're giving you in that scenario, and then say how it affected dates and pushed it forward. So the other two sections I've got completed this are the quality management. So quality management, I think you can cheat a little bit here. I think you can take some of the stuff that you've said in your quality management in your PID and copy it over. But I'm going to add things to it. I'm going to read through it and add to it, because this is a quality management from the perspective of a checkpoint. So considering the issues that occurred, what what problems have you, what things have you done as a project manager to make sure that they were okay? So I'm going to try and mention some of the things, I think. So quality management, and by the way, you've got 2 hours for this. I basically started doing this paper about 10:40, and it's now 11:24. So we've almost spent an hour on this, and then we move on to the email. The email is actually fairly simple once you've written all this. Remember, there are 22 marks for the email. Look at the mark scheme. There's a huge amount of marks for that. You need to get the email done, but you need to get the checkpoint done as well, because that will help you write the email massively. Lessons learned and things. So as a project manager, I wanted to make sure the quality is kept high. I've got this from my PID. By putting the right staff on the right task, so they deliver something that works, and the staff are kept busy but not overworked, because this will stress the staff and they may leave. For example, now how did I manage that? Let's go and look at my resource report. That you could look at your PDF, you'd have access to all this information. App developer did have a lot of work. The project manager did have 10 hours, but it's not showing because of, I think I've missed something out. The junior, look, the work's fairly balanced out, right? The app developer just had quite a bit of work. So you could say, for example, if you look at the resource chart, I balanced out the work mostly, although I did give the app developer more work, but that is because he's an expert. He's an expert, and I didn't want to put a junior developer on an app development task, as this might have affected the quality, right? So you justify why you've managed things in a certain way. Okay, and then say, in terms of staff being sick, unfortunately, we had to wait for the senior software developer to get well before he could start his task. Fortunately, okay, you could say that I did not use him on any other tasks, so there was not a knock-on effect. That might be a smart thing to have done. So there was not a knock-on effect. Also, the only thing that was affected was the software testing not starting until a week a week later because he had to finish that before we could start testing on it, right? But then you want to discuss the fact that you were clever enough, you were smart enough to put several testers onto the software testing, so it didn't mean that we went over time. But definitely right about everything you did really well. But I put several software testers onto the software testing task so that the project deadline was not affected because the task was split. Yeah. Well, so I will consider all the risk of the project and come up with a contingency plan so that if those events, maybe put this in more present tense. Like this is kind of talking about it retrospectively. So I wanted to make sure the quality, like in your PID, you're writing about project management control before you've done the project. In this, you're writing it afterwards, right? Was kept by putting the right staff on the right task so they deliver something that works, and the staff are kept busy but overworked. And this is just something, for example. And then I considered all the risks of the project and came up with contingency plans so that if those events happen, then the project doesn't affect you too much. As you can see, I predicted delays in equipment, staff being sick. I basically predicted all of the things. Yeah, and issues with the software working. And I tried to protect against those things by having detailed testing, thorough testing, and I basically said that in that last paragraph there. Thorough testing to a high standard following the ISO testing standards, whereby software and hardware is tested using acceptance. I also added in extra testing time for the software and hardware so that the major or minor faults did not affect the budget or deadline. That is actually what we did, and that's how I managed that project, and it was a good idea to do all those things. And also a communication plan was important because we needed to make sure, because I needed to make sure I was talking to each worker and the client to check if they have any issues or requests, so the project was delivered as needed. For example, when the senior software developer was sick, he was able to keep me informed. Now, I think one thing I just thought of was the network engineers were subcontractors. So I think maybe mentioning the fact that you subcontracted some of the work and had some people in-house was possibly quite a smart thing to do. So it's possibly worth mentioning that. So using subcontractors was a smart idea too, because it reduced like what's the difference between having in-house people and subcontractors are just easier to hire because it reduced the risk of not having enough staff. For example, the junior network engineers were vital in reducing the testing time. They really were, because you can hire a lot of them. They might be a bit more expensive though, and with our in-house team, we only have one senior and one junior. Now that was caused an issue because he was sick. So, if you've got people on the payroll, you can probably have less of them, right? Whereas if you've got subcontractors, you can hire probably more in. It's worth really going on about all that. Finally, lessons learned. This is basically, again, I could kind of copy. I've written quite a lot of stuff here. So some of these extra things I've written about, I could probably copy down as there as well. So lessons learned. Lessons learned based on the checkpoint scenario. These things here. So let's go through each one of them, right? What can we learn about delivery of cabling? So you can say that I actually predicted this. I actually predicted this, and I said that there would be an issue with delivery of something. However, this did not help in not delaying the project. Right. So in future I could make sure I order from several suppliers, so I have a backup and I don't have to wait. But really, delivery of things getting delayed isn't necessarily something you have a huge amount of control over. It could be world events, like for example at the moment the Suez Canal being blocked. Yeah, it's hard to predict against that. Then I'm going to copy the next one. The senior software engineer being sick. Senior software engineer being sick. Was ill during the second and third week. I predicted an issue like this with staff might happen. I think making sure important staff don't delay a project is vital. Perhaps hiring more subcontractors to fill in for the work he was meant to do would be a good idea in future. I had 3 junior network engineer subcontractors, and they massively helped with the testing. So having another senior subcontractor for software. Would be a great idea in future, right? So not just in-house staff, right? Think about getting, that having in-house staff is great. You can assure more quality. You just don't necessarily know where you're going to get with subcontractors, but when they're in-house, they're on a payroll. They've got a legal right to work there. You have to pay them, and subcontractors you can hire and fire really quickly. They do cost a bit more, but there you go, And then this last issue, security issues arose after the network lock. This meant that immediate shutdown and updating of scripts. This meant a delay of 8 days. However, I built in hundreds of hours of extra testing time for software and hardware, and this delay was absorbed by that. I also made sure testing was done to a high standard using ISO high ISO standard, right? So you make sure that the test is done to a high standard. Hundreds of extra hours are built in. So these are things I want to continue doing. Right. What else? What other lessons have we learned? I mentioned here at project management control, predicting risks, communicating is really important. Definitely, using subcontractors, staff being sick, balancing out the work. Oh yeah, let's mention that as well. Putting the right staff, such as app developers, on the right projects, on the right tasks is vital. I deliberately chose a more expensive app developer to do the app task instead of the cheaper junior dev, because I knew the quality was quite high. Right, so that's a lesson learned. Just go on about it, go on about yourself here, about everything you think you did really well. It's not the time to be shy. So really, I think that's the checkpoint. You've done the easy things at the beginning, dates and things. Then you've gone on all the products, the deliverables, figuring out whether the work's been completed on time or had a slight delay. Then you've said quality management based on this new scenario issues. What things did you do well to mitigate against these risks, things that have come up in terms of your planning before? Talk about this more retrospectively, looking back. The work package tolerance, like we went over budget. There's a certain tolerance, but we stayed within we actually had 7 days left at the end. So issues log, write down all the issues logged. Guess a date when that might have been raised and by who, and then say what action you took based on that and when the task was completed. And then the lessons learned is looking at all those faults and saying what things you learned from that you do better next time, and really go on about yourself there. So then we get onto the email. So you write, this is the next, like you've got 2 hours. I've spent about 1 hour on this. This should be fairly simple because we've written a lot of stuff in our checkpoint that we can reuse, the first way the thing the email should start with is a summary of the whole project. Then you should list all the tasks which you can copy from your PID, start and end dates, and costs, and any delays. And then you need to discuss the delays brought by these checkpoint issues, and then you need to say, specifically talk about dates and extra costs, and then you need to say what you will do as a project manager, what lessons you will learn from that. So the emails from Ben Smith is to Imran. I'm going to do this really quickly as well. Hussein, smart one devices, project closure, and you make this look professional. So I think one of the things I've said before is about making things look like you're writing a professional email, and that's really what part of the mark scheme is testing you on as well. So dear Imran, dear Mr. Hussein, get his name right, double check that. Hussein, see, it's spelt with, not with an E, it's spelt with an A. That would be immediately look bad, wouldn't it? How much did the project cost? Let's go to that work tolerance package. The smart devices project was a success. But start positive, Don't say, oh, we had these issues. Start positive. Nice summary. Say all the good things. We finished 7 days earlier on the 20th of March 2020, 56 days. The project, so we are going to have to tell them it went over slightly. The project cost £99,305 and I think 43 pence, right? And then say which is slightly like a 10% over the original budget, but this was necessary because we wanted to ensure quality. Justify and explain why you're doing these things. Part of the mark scheme is to get this project done on time, but I have definitely seen some scenarios, I'm sure some scenarios you can't, and if it's completely impossible for you to get things done on time, as long as you can justify it in your documentation, it should be all right. But it's got not that. It's like it was necessary because we wanted to ensure quality. I'm just going to open the little chat window so I can see if anyone's saying anything. Tools, view, docs, chat. Maybe no one's saying anything, but just in case. Can't even see the chat. We wanted to ensure the quality was kept high, and extra testing was done using the high ISO standards. This meant that any issues that came up were already budgeted in and did not affect the time scales of the project. That is true, right? Now we're going to go back to our PID and we're going to get the smart targets from here. And you can get these from the PID, or you could get them from your Gantt chart. Should we get it from this? Yeah, maybe we should get it from here. And I can just copy it over a bit more easily. Although it's not got the costs in there. I'm going to paste this all in here. This. I just want to paste this as text, really. Can I do that? I don't really want this as a table. Right, and just right. Sometimes it just makes sense to write the email up properly and copy things over for each. So what we've got is we've got software. We're going to have different groups: sort hardware and testing. Right, those are the three groups. So creating the app, 18 general function points. It took this long. No, that's not what I wanted. So it started on this date, and so again, I'm going to go to here. I'm just going to copy things over from my smart targets. This way, the more information you put in your PID and your smart targets, the easier it makes it to write other things later on. So finish on that. Costing £3,105, and was done by the app developer. There were no issues. Setting up the back end, 12 complex function points. This was done. So that again, that started then and finished then. 3,600. This is a bit of a laborious thing, really, isn't it? Just having to copy out all the different tasks, all the different the costs. But really, this should be a professional looking email, something easy for someone to read, giving him a click, giving Imran a clear summary of everything you've done, all the work. If you are running out of time, and you can't lay things out nicely, there isn't anything wrong really with copying from the table. Just get the information in there, and you can make a table look neat. Just if possible, break it up into different sections, into different tasks. So we're setting up the back end. That was done by the app developer. So that's the software stuff, and then installing and configuring, that's a hardware task, isn't it? It started on, actually it didn't start on the 9th anymore, because it started on, if you remember from what we've just written, it started on the 13th of the 1st, 23. Done by the senior network developer, costing 2,800. There was an issue with delivery of cables pushing this forward. So probably worth highlighting that so he could be drawn into that. Put the titles in bold. The next one, installing network infrastructure. So I'm just going to speed up a bit and copy that from the previous row. So network infrastructure, £2,772. Done by junior network developer. Again, the cable delivery delay affected this. Right. Other next hardware one is installing cameras, sensors, and lights. So I said that this was not affected. Perhaps it might have been though. Perhaps because it is a hardware thing. So maybe we could say that that was affected as well. Perhaps you should need to update that in the. That was done by again by junior network developer. It cost 3080. Don't forget punctuation. So again, comma. You get marked on this sort of things. Might be worth highlighting all the tasks as well, so they can see each one. So installing cameras and sensors. Next one, installing and configuring a technical hub. I don't think that got affected. But and it finished on 01/02/2023, done by there were no, unless maybe we think that was affected, there are no issues here. So I've got to put the finish date here as well. So if we are going to say that that's going to have been affected, how much would it have been affected by. So if all these hardware tasks are affected by this delay, reconsidering it, and they all start on the 13th, so the only one that won't get affected is that hub software, but everything else, sensors, technical hub, is they're all going to start on the 13th because of that cable delay. How does that affect the overall project? Doesn't push and it doesn't make the end date any more difficult. So that one is now 6. So just had to readjust that so it wasn't clashing. Obviously you can't resubmit this, but you can like reuse it to get any extra dates out from. So I'm going to say all of these has been affected. So that the first one is 2601 to 2601.23. Right, installing, configuring server. The infrastructure is now 0302. 0302.23. The installing that one, the cameras and sensors at 0702. And this one is installing and configuring the technical hub. 1301.2301. Seven days. 2301. So I'm going to say all those hardware tasks were affected by this delay. So it's probably worth saying at the beginning of that section, all the hardware installation tasks were affected by a delay, by the cable delivery delay. It's fair to say, I think. Next one, this configuring the technical hub, the software. That will come under software as well, so we're going to put it up here. So that was not the senior software engineer. We said he did start it then, but he was sick, so it took him 15 days. So he started on the 0901. So it started on time, but due to sickness, he did not finish until 2701.23. Now, if you think about it, he is a permanent member of staff, so you're going to have to pay him when he's sick. So this meant that the task took 15 days or 5 days extra. It would affect the cost, but I'm not sure if you need to recalculate that. But you should definitely say that it took a little bit extra time, right? I'm going to increase the font size of the titles, I think. You want things to stand out. It's all about layout, this email. You can see it looks pretty good. I'm highlighting information, I'm drawing people into it. Hardware, software, testing. So the last two tasks are software testing. Now, this was done by 2 people, wasn't it? Software testing. So that started on, when did it start? 2301. Started on 2301.23 by the junior software developer. The task was split. The task was split between him and the app developer to speed it up. The app developer started on the 9th, 09/02/23. All testing, all software testing was finished by. So he's the one who finished last. So by the end of the project, so by the 20th of March 23. The technical issue with with security on the server did not affect the end date. Why didn't it affect the end date? Because we built in that extra testing time. So go on about that. Mention it. It's important. Extra testing time, which is why there was a slight increase in overall costs, right? So that's software testing. We mentioned that we split the task, speed it up. Hardware testing is the last thing we've got to mention. And that was split between 3 people, wasn't it? So hardware testing. This was split between our 3 subcontractors, the junior network engineers, to speed things up, right? And they started on (01/02/23) and finished on 23/02. There was no delays to this. Obviously, their slight they had to hang on a second. It's hardware testing. No, if you look at the Gantt chart, which I've just changed, because of that delay in the things being delivered, that was pushed forward. Therefore, they couldn't start hardware testing until all of those tasks have been hardware tasks have been finished. So the 07/02. So it's like 07/02, and they finish on the 1st of March. So this was pushed forward by the delay in delivery of cables as they were working on hardware installation first. So, really list out all the tasks you've got here, say how they're affected, if they're affected, why they're affected, how much they cost, how much did that task cost. Let's look here. Hardware testing cost £8,404. £8,404. Right, so we've gone into a lot of detail here. We've broken it up into different sections. We've listed when the tasks start, when they finished, how much they cost, and who worked on them. Right. And it's important to highlight important bits of information as well, like the titles of the different tasks, the issue delivering, cable, maybe that we should highlight that cable delay affected this. push forward by delivery of cables. Any information that you want to draw the person in to reading this, put it in there. And the last thing we've got to do is actually fairly easy, because we've already written it, really. Our lessons learned. I'm going to pretty much copy this into my email, and I'm going to maybe just read through it and make sure it makes sense in that kind of a prose way. You know, in terms of who I'm targeting this email towards. So I might even just title it "Lessons Learned." Right. So what did I say? Delivery of cabling was delayed by 4 days. I predicted this. Comma, and I said that there would be an issue with delivery of something. However, this does not affect a delaying project. In future, I could have made sure that I ordered from several suppliers. Seeing software developer is ill, but I also predicted that. But I'm making sure that staff today. So maybe we will hire more subcontractors in future to fill in the work. It's a good idea. 3 junior network engineers. Security issues arose around when the network went live. This required an immediate shutdown of updating of the scripts. This meant a delay of 8 days. However, I built in 100 hours of extra testing time. Hundreds of hours. Well, I think we should be specific here. If we look at that, we built in 572, or 600, say 600 hours. 600 hours of extra testing time. I also put in the right staff on app developers. Right. So basically, all the lessons learned that you've written about in your checkpoint, I think you can reuse. Why not? Why can't you reuse them in your email? The email, should start with a summary to go through all the different tasks, saying how much they cost, start and end date, whether they were affected by what delays. So here it was not affected by that technical issue because we built in the extra testing time. The hardware testing was split between 3 subcontractors, so it sped things up. We've discussed everything there. He seems to that, and then all you got to do is say yours sincerely, your name, Ben Smith. Also, one thing I think we should put is project managing. Put that as another section. So he might want to know I budgeted myself into the project, spending 1 day a week on it, and it cost. How much extra did that cost? Go to your PID and look it up, or your Gantt chart somewhere where I've got that cost. 4,000. So it was 80 times 40. Somewhere I've put that project managing cost in. I know I've got it in here. At 10 days, 80 times 40 was 3,200. So cost 3,200. Maybe one more thing we should also put is in lessons learned is I also learned the value of communication. So you want to mention that you predicted risks, that you thought ahead. Mention what those risks were that you predicted, as I have done. So being a good project manager is all about communicating, staffing people correctly, risk analysis, and coming up with contingency plans. but and communication, right? Also, the value of communication with you and with other members of staff is vital to deliver a project that is a success. That is a success, and it has been a pleasure working with you. End it nicely, you know. And that is really it. So if anyone's still on the watching the video, I'll just check the chat. That's all I'm going to do. That's all you have to do. We've done this, apart from the slight delay at the beginning because of technical issues. We did this in an hour and a half. We've gone into a lot of detail. Hopefully you have a really good idea of what you've got to do now for your Part B email and your checkpoint. It requires a little bit of thinking. It requires a little bit of looking back at the stuff you've filled in with your PID, which is why it's so vital to have that PID filled in. Do you have any questions? If you're still listening, Tion, Chenk, are you there? If you've got any questions, and if not, I'm gonna sign off because I want to have a bit of a weekend as well. I'm going to put the documentation that I've just written up, you've watched me develop, I'm going to put it into the same folder, so you've got a hold of that. Good luck in your exams. I'll just message you, is anyone still here? Any questions before I go? I'm guessing that's a no. So, right, I'll put this all into the folders. Good luck in your exam, and let me know if I can help you out with anything else. Comment in that I'm going to publish this video, comment below. I'll try and timestamp it as well. So thank you.